Hey. You're being blackmailed.
The film will be shared with your friends, your family.
The world and beyond lies at the fingertips of all internet users. But it can be a technological Wild West where abuse, radicalisation and any and all sorts of harm is abundant. Today, the Home Secretary said that's all to change.
It's time for you to protect the users and give them the protection they deserve, and I will accept nothing else.
The effects of inaction online are being felt every day in the real world for Ruth Moss, singing here with her 13-year-old daughter, Sophie.
She took her own life in 2014, and she did that at home. And it was after that that I had a look at her tablet and found that she'd actually downloaded some really difficult material, some very violent images that showed a person how to take their own life and promoted self-harm and cutting. Governments need to step in and say, right, there needs to be accountability and some responsibility on the part of the companies that are hosting this kind of material.
It's precisely the sort of content that Sophie found and other forms of online harm that the government's white paper wants to root out. Nothing in this paper is binding. At the moment, it's all just suggestions which will be consulted on over the next 12 weeks. But those suggestions could have real bite, like an independent regulator that can write its own code of conduct. And that independent regulator should have the ability to fine firms and fine them in proportion to how big they are. So if you're an internet giant worth billions, well, your fine could be substantial. And what about those repeat offenders? Well, it suggests that internet providers should block them. There is, though, one online harm that this paper doesn't cover. Last year, Channel 4 News exposed the extent to which firms can use social media to manipulate democratic elections across the world.
So this stuff infiltrates the online community and expands, but with no branding.
This digital assault on democracy is not addressed in today's paper. Why not? Or do you just not think it's that big of an issue?
I do see democracy, our electoral system, is part of, as far as I look at it, is part of our critical national infrastructure. It needs to be protected, it needs to be cherished, and there is work across government that's being done, that's being led by the Cabinet Office, and the Home Office is part of that too.
It's a missed opportunity, according to the chair of the Digital, Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee, who thinks legislation change is needed and fast.
We've seen a lot of reports of people running advertising campaigns. We don't know who's doing it, we don't know where the money's coming from, people don't know why they're being targeted. That's not been addressed in the white paper, but there's an urgent need to get that right. And should we have an early general election, I think we need emergency legislation to bring proper transparency to political advertising online.
Whether it's damaging democracy digitally,
I'll never forget the first time we met,
or the pain caused by the Wild West web, the scope of online harm is vast and growing exponentially. The challenge for government: is it really capable of catching up?
Paul McNamara reporting now. Just before we came on air, I spoke to Margot James, the Government Minister for Digital and Creative Industries. I began by asking her why it has taken so long to take action.
Well, I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, I think you raise a fair point. I think I would wish that we had acted sooner. But bearing in mind that we are the first country to take such a broad and holistic approach to the matter of regulating online content, I think that at least we've got the benefit of learning, and we've been able to prioritise what really does need our attention now.
We've been talking to Ruth, the mother of a child called Sophie, who took her own life after being bombarded with all sorts of terrible things online, how to take your own life. She was contacted by older men. She was sort of terrorised online. I mean, are you sure you can stop that?
Yes, I really do think that we can. I think that I wish, as I said, that we'd been able to take action sooner, but we really are on course now. The proposal is, as you know, John, to set up an independent, powerful regulator that will oblige companies to act on a duty of care to their users. And of course, quite a lot of what you've just described in that terrible and tragic case is illegal, and that can be prosecuted now under current law. And we will be looking, I know the Home Secretary is absolutely prioritising action under existing laws to tackle grooming online and images of child abuse, terrorist-related content. That can all be tackled as of now. We don't need to wait for a regulator there.
But we're dealing with massive entities like Google and Facebook. I mean, when Mr. Zuckerberg was called before the DCMS, of course he didn't come. He did go before the European Union, and one wonders whether, after Brexit, we'd have any more effect anyway.
Well, I think the priority is really that we get our own laws and regulation through Parliament, establish the regulator, give it the powers it needs, and in terms of what happens in the UK, under UK law, we can hold these companies to account. Of course, if we can see action on a wider European footing, that is all to the good. But of course, that takes even longer, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, to get the agreement among 28, soon to be 27 member states. And in fact, the directives at the moment, if anything, hold us back. So I think that we can take effective action as a single country.
Given that Parliament is absolutely paralysed by Brexit, what confidence do you have that you'll ever be able to put this before them?
Well, you do raise a very good point. I'm not going to deny the sorry situation in which we find ourselves, but it won't last forever. And as soon as we get a slot, hopefully in the new session of Parliament, the Prime Minister is very determined to get a deal, get Parliament behind something to agree with the European Union by this week, we hope, so that we can leave in an orderly fashion with a deal as soon as possible. That being said, of course, we will have to wait until this terrible situation is resolved and Parliament can get on with doing things that are of such great concern to the public.